Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? Oh, Captain Rufus is the first one to clap. You win an iPad tonight then, Rufus? No, just kidding, you don't. My name is Mike Myatt, and I am proud to be the Chief Operating Officer of IGFA. Hey, Ridge, you can bring that right up here. Everybody, Captain Ridge Murphy. The future of our sport is right here, right now. You get kids like Ridge that come and respect the event that we're having tonight, and I think that's what it's all about, generations. But Ridge, I asked for a bottle of water, not a glass of water, so I'll have to forgive you for that. On behalf of our Board of Trustees, our Chairman Pacquiao Field, Dr. Guy Harvey, Bill Shedd, two of our board members that are here tonight, our President Rob Kramer, and our wonderful staff here at IGFA would like to welcome you to the 5th Annual IGFA Legendary Captain and Crew Awards. You know, we have a bunch of great recognition things that we do here at IGFA, and that's the business that we're in. Whether it be a world record, whether it be an outstanding catch, but we couldn't do it without the great class of Hall of Fame members that we have. I'd like to recognize, it works for me, and I know it would work for you, Mr. Mark Soson. Mark has been a mentor to a bunch of us here at IGFA, and I know that he's working on his 33rd book. And what is that, Mark? 101 things you can do with a number 64 rubber band? We lost the notes, but we're trying to reconfigure them, so we're gonna get back there. I'd also like to thank Captain Steve Huff for coming over. Steve got off the water in Everglades City at 5 o'clock this afternoon, another Hall of Famer. As always, with his beautiful bride, Patty. Alan Merritt. Alan, where are you, man? There you are. Stick around later. If you really want to have a good time, stick around later and watch what he does on the red carpet on the way out. Honest God, he skips like a leprechaun on the way out. And Roy, what a great son you are to bring him here every single time. And you know what? The Merritts have been a big part of IGFA's history, and thank you very much. Captain Al Anderson, who's going to be getting an award tonight, another Hall of Famer. Al, thank you for coming down. He managed to get out of Boston. They've had 80 feet of snow in the last week or so. They've got no place to put it. Yeah, they're throwing it on the USS Constitution right now because no one cares. Mike Leach, my first boss here at IGFA. Hall of Famer, president here at IGFA, and Mike used to say one thing every single day: work hard, and that was it. But you also said one thing to me today, which years ago, 14 and a half years ago, Mike, why do you need a computer? His lovely wife, Gussie, is always here with him, his son, Eric, who's continuing the legacy. Thank you guys for coming. Dr. Guy Harvey, which I'll speak about in a couple minutes, but Guy, I know I told you I wasn't going to pick on you this year, but I'm probably going to a little bit. But you have these people that give and give and give and give, and I had some slides that I had Adrian Gray, our artist, magnify, but when Guy actually goes to a boat show, The forearm on his right hand where he signs all this stuff is actually like 11 inches round because he goes on this non-drinking thing for, Jillian, January and part of February? And then he comes home from the boat show and he looks like Popeye. He's got this huge freaking arm because he signs every single autograph and spends time with every single person that comes to the boat show. And you know what? As a trustee, a Hall of Fame member, as a friend guy, you do so much for the industry, not only for IGFA, but for, every single other nonprofit, and it's very appreciated by all of us here. Thank you so much. And a list is only as good as the people you forget. So anyone I forgot, you can come over and I'll be eating cold roast beef later and you can take it up with me. IGFA is an international organization. We're all around the world. And we couldn't do it without the Coconut Telegraph, or as we like to call our International Committee of Representatives. And we have over 300 representatives in 130 countries and territories, and the information that they give us, the conservation measures that they invite us into, the issues that's going on in different countries. Everyone in the room that's an IGFA rep, I'd like you to stand up and recognize, because this is really what IGFA is about. So please, Chris, come on, Chris, stand up. Everybody else in the room. It would be absolutely impossible to have an event like this, which I know creeps everyone out because you come here, there's no auction. There's no raffle. There's no fundraising. Dave, are you choking? Who needs a Heimlich? Someone was choking. Oh, was it Holiday? Hollywood, you okay? Dave wants more rods. My life partner and bottom feeder, Dave. But this is an event that's made for captains and crews. And we want to make it so that everyone can come. And as you can see by the majority of people in this room, tables are full. People are happy. People are having a blast. And this is what this event is all about. And, we'll talk a little bit about, hi, Stephanie Choate. I didn't see you over there. Multiple world record holder. How about that makeup out front? Stephanie owns that makeup out front. Yo, Stephanie! Gonna need a credit card number. Just throwing stuff out there. Okay, so we couldn't do stuff like this without our sponsors. And, nothing goes on here at IGFA without Mercury Marine. And, they've been a huge part of IGFA for the past 14 years. John Matthews got snowed in Milwaukee. He's probably ice fishing for perch in the parking lot. But I wanted to thank Margie for coming down tonight, and Reed, and representing, and thank you guys very much for everything you do for IGFA and the participation that you have in all our education and conservation programs. Thank you very much. Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation. Last year I was at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, and Guy walked up to me and said, I want to sponsor an event at IGFA. And I'm thinking to myself, don't give me work. I don't need any more work. And he said specifically he wanted to be a part of this event with the Ocean Foundation because he liked what it represented. He represented countries, counties, states, captains, and crews that, in every single county, state, country, there's some guy that's a stud in their specific area. And you know what, Guy? Thank you very much, because you didn't give me extra work. You made this really enjoyable, and you're laughing at me right now. And I don't want to throw you a zinger, but because your beautiful wife Jillian is with you, I'm not going to. Okay, maybe I will a little bit. Stephen, Stacy, Dave, Tony, I mean, thank you guys for what you do. And once again, not just for IGFA, but the entire fishing community. And tomorrow night, they're having a fundraiser in South Beach, and it's all about catching bait out front. It's all about the marker. And if you guys have a second to go online and check it out, go down there and support them, because what they're doing is really cool. What they do for education is really cool. And be part of it. If you're not part of it, you're just not. And that's, you know, if you don't want to be relevant, don't. Costa del Mar. Oh, actually, just Costa. We're not Coca-Cola. We're not, you know, Pepsi-Cola. We're just Costa now. But if you take a look at anything that's going on in the United States as far as fishing tournaments, fishing events, conservation events, cutting edge, it's Costa. And they show up everywhere. They spread themselves thin. They spend a lot of money being thin. Although, Dave, my life partner, you and I aren't thin. What is up with that?
I'm the same weight, I'm just shorter.
Dave and I are medical oddities. You know, we are expanding yet decomposing at the same time. I have to give that one to Tommy Sanders from ESPN. But Amanda, Holiday, I mean, you guys are the best. You guys support everyone, and what you're doing with, you know, with the Cat K tournament, what you're doing with I almost had a tear there. But I didn't, so we're going to go on. No, actually I did. You guys are the best, and give Al, you know, when you go back to the office, give Al a kiss with the Mickey Mouse shirt. So, did everyone like the rum tonight? Huh? How about Papa's Pilar? These guys not only make the best rum that I think I've ever had, but they show up to every single IGFA event. They've spread it out to IGFA, CCA, boat shows. They are just absolutely spreading the love. Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation. Oh, no, that's right. You have that spiced rum. No, it's good too, Steve. It's okay. Just teasing. Wow, nice look, Steve. Jeez, should have brought that up. But what I'm saying is that you guys are supporting every other conservation organization too, and it's appreciated. And I think that's a common theme in the room tonight, because you look at all these tables in here, and you know that's what people are doing. I look over here, I see Captain Rick Murphy, and you know what? I really wanted to thank you for bringing your parents here tonight. Oh, come on, Ridge, that's a joke. You're a captain. Come on, it's okay. It's okay to laugh at them. Oh. Oh. Really deafening silence. Hugh Mcauley from Hugh's Culinary that prepared this dinner for us tonight. He can't be here. He's suffering on his 80-foot Hatteras over in Chub Cay because the weather wasn't good enough to get home. He's been suffering over there for the last 8 weeks. So I think Hugh will probably get over it sometime between now and when he has to sign checks next month. I want to give the legendary captain and crew committee that comes together and selects people for this. It's an interesting process. It's actually captains and mates that have significant relevance in the world that vote on this. IGFA doesn't have a vote. We monitor the meetings, and the way that I monitored tonight is I brought a bottle of Papa's Pilar, Skip brought the Coke and the ice, And we sat there for an hour and a half and listened to the most incredible stories in the world. And Jeff Aderman, who's filming this, needs to be there next year, but no one will ever be able to see the film because the stories were absolutely incredible. Peter Wright, you are an animal. What was that about? Yeah, animal. We were wild animals. But Bobby Brown, who's the vice chairman of the committee, couldn't be here tonight because evidently the last couple of years I've remarked about his hair and he's having a new weave done, so he couldn't be here. Captain Carl Anderson, who's present at every single event that we do. His dad's here. They actually told me how I pronounce my hometown, which I call the Bangor, but it's Bangor, Maine. Carl is wise beyond his years and probably knows more about the history of fishing than the rest of us. I mean, he really is a student of it, and his lovely partner, Debbie, I can't tell you how much they mean to IGFA and how much I love those two. Captain Gary Ellis. If no one in this room has ever fished an inshore tournament, I would suggest you go down and fish one of the Red Bone events. It's an event that supports cystic fibrosis. Gary and Susan Ellis have a lovely daughter who I just can't tell you. Nicole is the most remarkable person who is, what, 31 years old now, Gary? 30, has lived with cystic fibrosis from the support that we give their tournaments. So if you ever want to go down, you can chuck bait, you can throw fly, you can throw artificial, and it is the best time. And you get to hear me for the second time in a year, which is probably worth the money. Captain Mark Garnsey. And Debbie Joe from Idaho. I thought Debbie Joe was your middle name. I didn't realize Joe was your last name. I called you Debbie Joe twice today. Is that what you go by, Debbie Joe, all the time? So you guys are going to hear from Captain Bark, and good luck with all that. Steve Lastly, the Laszlo, has probably won more money as a tournament captain than anyone else in the history of Earth. And he can't be here tonight because he promises his wife every 10 years on Valentine's Day he'll be home. And he actually lied. He's down bait fishing in Cabo. Charles Perry is here tonight, the CP. CP got weathered in last year, got in tonight, and I wish I could tell one of the stories you told tonight, but because we have young ears tonight, sorry, Charles, I can't. But I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sleep tonight, Charles, hearing some of those stories. It's going to replace the screaming of the whales in my dreams. Bouncer Smith. Bouncer, where are you, man? I do not think there's been anybody more relevant in the sport of fishing in South Florida than Bouncer. I mean, you know, if you look up Bouncer Smith and you see these accolades next to won this, won this, won this, but that's not what Bouncer's about. What Bouncer's about is sharing the sport. He brings so many different charities out fishing, spreads his love, does seminars. I mean, the guy does not rest. And when he comes up in a couple minutes, you're going to see, he's got an arm and a sling, he's got a cane, and I told him, I said, Bouncer, if I have to put you in a bowl to bring you up here to speak to people, we'll do it. But Bouncer, thank you so much for what you shared with all of us. Very appreciated. Gary Stuve. Wow. Gary Stuve has been there, done that, wrote the book, and once again today sort of creeped me out a little bit. Colleen, you're good with all this? Can you sleep at night? Does his leg twitch? Does anything go on? I know. Gary, thank you so much for all the support that you give us and, giving us your son Charlie to be able to deal with Carl. Love you again, Carl. But, just the stories that were told today, we're going to have to record the meeting, but we can never show it to anybody, but we can all enjoy it. Laurie Wright. I don't even know what day it is for Laurie. He's in Australia. It's probably tomorrow or... Laurie gives us the best information, the most complete information. And, Skip can attest to this. And, I always, email the committee and it's like, good afternoon, everyone. And then I think about it and say, well, Laurie, I don't even know what freaking day it is. Is it tomorrow? Is it yesterday? And if it's tomorrow, how'd the heat do? So... And last but certainly not least, Peter B. Wright. Peter brought me the most complete bio of any honoree we've ever had of Mutt Coble, and I misplaced it. And I'm like, come on, man, Peter, yeah, it's on you. And he goes, no, I brought it down there, and, I left it down there. And I said, geez, I don't know. And I asked Gail Morchower, who is, keeps us all straight around here with the history and everything. And Gail said, oh, yeah, I have it. You gave it to me. It's like, whew, because I did not want to go back to Peter and said, I forgot. But Peter and Aaron Wright have been entwined in IGFA history for a long time, and, their family, and just want to say we love you guys very much. As you can probably appreciate, I'm running out of things to say. Kevin Mensch, you're laughing too hard over there. Kevin, you're way too close to the bar. Okay. Just want to thank everyone for coming. But I have the next introduction I'm going to give is for a particular really good friend of mine. And I'm going to introduce Captain Skip Smith. That's okay. You guys can clap. Skip, it would be a long, oh, God, can you guys put your fingers in your ears for just 1 second? Just 1 second. Just 1 second. It'd be a long-ass speech. Okay, you guys can put your fingers on. It'd be a long-ass, oops. If I went on to Skip's fishing accomplishments, but that's really not the way I want to go. I really want to go in the direction that Skip works tirelessly for stuff that he believes in. He brought the whole idea of this event to IGFA, and it's a home run. And yeah, and he hates being recognized, but he's going to have to be for a second, because not only does he donate time to this event, but he's tirelessly working with IGFA and tagging programs. He runs the best billfish tournaments in the world. And he gets it, because he gets there's this disconnect between history and what we're doing today. And we look around the room, Skip, and we're seeing younger people here recognizing what the rest of the people did, whether it be an Alan Merritt, a Tommy Green, Gary Stoof. Sorry, Gary. Didn't mean to include you in that thing. But you know, it's humbling to have this type of crowd here, and having people like a Ridge Murphy, a young Dan Jacobs. Yeah, sorry, Dan. I had to throw that in there. Bonnier Corporation, everyone. Yeah. Wow, pretty popular, Dan. But anyway, you know, it's humbling to have the younger people come here and see what's going on with the generation that did, the generation that can be, and continue the process. And that's what Skip's about. And you know what? A good friend of IGFA, good friend of fishing in general. No further ado, Captain Skip Smith.
He does pretty good on a blank sheet. I don't know how he does it. The only way you can follow Mike Myatt in a speech like that is with a police car. I'm just going to be serious as I usually am and get down to the nitty-gritty, because there's a lot of people here that deserve a recognition that is long coming for a lot of these guys. So I'll let him be the funny guy, and I'm going to be serious. First of all, I'd like to thank the IGFA, the trustees, especially Rob Kramer and Mike Myatt for believing in this event. It's a long time coming. I also want to thank Shimano and Costa, Guy Harvey, Mercury, Hughes, and Pilar for their corporate support. Awesome, you guys can see what we see. I'm not sure if Mike introduced Gail. Gail Mochauer, are you here? Would you please stand up? Gail, are you here? Someone point her out. She's back here. Gail is really, she puts in more hours than anybody here. She's in charge of the library, but she's the one that does all the research, finds out all the history of these guys, and she puts more into the event than probably anybody here. Gail, thank you for your tireless effort for this event. Unbelievable. Last but not least, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here and supporting the event. It's absolutely, special that you guys are here, not to enjoy it, but the stories will be worthwhile. I can believe you. I mean, you got to believe it. It's kind of a roast, but at the same time a respect thing. So hopefully you'll hear some funny stories, and you'll hear some good ones. The inductees here are chosen by their peers. You heard Mike introduce each one of them. We couldn't be more blessed with the committee. Each one has deserved the respect, and they're also humble. Everybody on this committee, there's no braggarts. They're all very humble. And when you receive this award from your peers, you've really earned the ultimate award. There's no doubt. So far, there's been 22 captains and crews that have received it. With this 5, there'll be 27. And pardon me for having to read this, because even though I've read this thing 1,000 times, I got to read it one more time to you. The primary criteria for receiving the Legendary Captain Crew Award from the IGFA and their peers is that the captain or crew member must have provided leadership in their trade and have earned the respect of their peers, thus making a meaningful contribution to the sport of recreational angling over an extended period of time. The nominee must demonstrate that he or she has espoused the ethical angling standards stated by the founders of the IGFA. So you know this just isn't for everybody. Past recipients present, of course, he already named everybody off. Chip Schaefer's here, Alan Merritt, Bill Curtis, Bouncer Smith, Gary Ellis, Bart Garnsey, Charles Perry. There's quite a few of them here. Every one of you guys have earned it. And when we meet afterwards, I meet with Barkey and Peter, we all meet afterwards. We have no regrets. We have hit everyone on the head. Everyone has deserved this award. So congratulations to all of you. If anybody would like to nominate anybody, we do accept it. We need your help on this. There's so many people out there really deserve it. There's a couple hundred people on the list, but we need more. This event's going to go on for many generations, and we need more. We need your input. There's a lot of guys that are under the radar, so to nominate anybody, call Mike Myatt, and he'll set you straight in more ways than one. Each year the committee meets, and this year it's called the Tommy Gifford Award for many reasons. You don't get this award by catching a world records or getting your picture on Marlin Magazine. And as to quote Mark Soson, Mark, thanks for your dedication all the years, but this is his best quote ever. There is no greater honor than to be recognized by your peers. You cannot buy it, you have to earn it. Mark, that's the best quote in the world. Thank you for that. This is precisely what the Tommy Gifford Award represents. Let me tell you a little bit more about Tommy Gifford, for whom this award is named after. Tommy Gifford was born in 1896. He is considered one of the most innovative blue water anglers who ever lived, and one of the greatest charter captains to guide anglers to the major game fishes of the sea. He began his charter career in Miami in 1920. Didn't even know they fished back then. At the age of 23, and within a few seasons, he had made a reputation for himself. Gifford was the first to use spreader outriggers on the East Coast. I guess he put something on those old bamboo outriggers. And the first to catch Atlantic blue marlin with the new devices. Over the course of his 50-year career, he developed an encyclopedic knowledge of game fishing techniques to catch them. And he served as guide and consultant to some of the most famous names in saltwater angling, including Ernest Hemingway, Michael Lerner, Charlie Lehman, and Van Kampen Hielner. He never lost his zest for the sea or his awe at the creatures beneath the waves. Raymond Camp wrote, "Big game angling has a brief history, but Tommy Gifford's name is sharply etched on every page." I mean, this guy had it down and really set the path for what these guys you're about to meet and the guys that are already on, have received this award, have accomplished. At this time, I'd like to bring Bouncer Smith up to introduce our first person to receive the award. I mean, there's people here tonight like Rufus and Guy Harvey that have fished with many crews and are here because they really respect and appreciate what the crews have done for many of the owners. And during the Hall of Fame speeches, I heard so many times these Hall of Famers, these anglers have always thanked the crews and said they couldn't have done it without them. And it's about time these guys got honored. And one of the kings of them all, the guy that gives from the heart, Bouncer Smith.
What a great guy. His hat doesn't fit anymore because I crushed it so many times in the old days. It was a funny thing. I walked in here tonight, and Mike Myatt walked up, and he said, "You need a printout on your introduction tonight?" And I says, "Yeah, that would be really great. I could really use one." And the truth of the matter is, I really only needed to print out for the last two words. Because when I was growing up, and through my whole career, probably the two people I've idolized the most are Captain Al Anderson and Frank Mathers. And Al Anderson and Frank Mathers were the pioneers in what we do today to try to keep our fishery alive. It's hard to imagine that when Al Anderson started tagging game fish, he had to make his own tags out of copper wire and tie them around their tails. And I don't know whether he hammered them flat and stamped his name into them with the date or how he accomplished it, but I do know that he's famous for his copper wire tags tied around the fish's tails. He graduated from Adelphi University, and he tagged his first striped bass with an American Literary Society tag in 1967. And through the years, I've always admired his efforts at tagging and releasing fish. And if you talk to anybody that knows me, you know that tagging and releasing fish has always been a big part of my fishing. And that really comes from the lessons of Al Anderson and Frank Mathers. I never got to fish with Al, but I fished with Frank. And Frank couldn't talk a paragraph without mentioning Al, no matter where they were at. But Frank Mathers and Al Anderson went way back, and they founded the Bluefin Tuning Tagging Program, which today we follow things in our society of fishermen about bluefin tunas being tagged in the northeastern Atlantic states and being recaptured in the Mediterranean. And we read articles about the bluefin tuna stocks recovering in the Gulf of Mexico. And these guys were way back when there was no concern about the population of bluefin tunas. These guys were already figuring out what made them tick. And it's a sad thing that early in my career, bluefin tunas were good for two things: taking pictures of on the dock and towing back out Bimini Harbor to watch the sharks eat them. Today, their value is much, much greater because we've learned how easy it is to wipe out the greatest game fish in the ocean. But back in 1977, Al started working on tagging sharks with Jack Casey. And it just goes on and on. It's an interesting thing that Al Anderson tagged his 60,000th game fish, a 6-pound striped bass, in August of 2014. And most of us old-timers probably haven't caught 60,000 fish if we don't count the herring and pilchards, so that's a lot of fish to tag. So without further ado, because there are a lot of stories to go on tonight, we're going to ask Paul Osimo to come up here and tell us the best and the worst about Al Anderson. And Al Anderson, thank you for guiding me and all through my career. It's really been valuable information. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. I'm just the guy who runs around on the back of the boat. For most of my life, it's been my job to watch different shaped lures get dragged through miles of ocean. But there's honestly nothing I'd rather do. Captain Al hired me 10 years ago as a mate and co-captain of the Prowler, a boat, even as an inanimate object, I consider a dear friend. As a young kid, my dad would drag me to the tackle shop before our countless fishing trips out on Nantucket Sound. On one of those trips to that shop, he finally allowed me to purchase the book that I'd most often leaf through while wandering the lure-filled aisles. It was a book that featured on the cover a mustachioed man in dark sunglasses, posing with a very surprised-looking gape-mouthed school tuna. This particular book promised insight on how to catch, at the very least, one tuna. You can imagine my shock and excitement when, 15 years later, a job opportunity floated across my computer screen, posted by the author of the book that I had worn the corners off of from years of repeat reading. I will cherish the time that I had jogging around the seemingly endless rear deck of the Prowler, preaching the importance of level winding, listening to the cap warn against standing around like a bunch of wooden Indians, and also making sure to bang the rod tips on any and every available gel-coated surface, because it's a really great way to get a sport fishing captain's blood pressure up, which I personally feel adds an important element to the charter fishing experience. I'm eternally grateful for the chance to have helped tag and release the incredible number of fish during my years out on deck. And I'm sure that Captain Gifford would have reveled in the acceptance exhibited by the countless Prowler clients to adopt and practice the conservation for science methodology that Captain Al has employed for so many years. It's an honor to have plied the waters of southern New England under the tutelage of this accomplished representative of the IGFA. And it as is being present to see him receive this accolade. An award named after a man whose insight and creativity has infinitely benefited the sport and way of life. Congratulations, Cap.
Captain Al Anderson, please come up and accept your award. I mean, this guy's the king. Come on, Al. You're welcome, Al. Congratulations. Would you like the mic for about 5 minutes? 10 minutes? Take whatever you want. It's all yours. You deserve every bit of it.
That sounds like a plan. Good evening, everyone. First off, I'm honored to be a recipient of the Tommy Gifford Award. Second, I want to thank those IGFA committee members who nominated me. And lastly, it was a career privilege to have so many of my clients support my conservation for science tagging ethic. If Gifford were alive today, we lost him in 1970 to cancer at age 74. Gifford would undoubtedly have applauded my wife's light tackle, tournament fishing winning catches like bluefin tuna, white marlin, and sailfish. Or he would loudly applaud my late arrival to a nearly pitch dark, fog-shrouded dock, towing a tournament-winning bluefin tuna in excess of 1,000 pounds. Busted the scale at the tournament on that one. Or watched one of my previous inboard-powered skiffs with a forward-mounted tuna gimbal chair, much like the one that Gifford designed and created back in the 1930s in his dories that he fished out of in Canadian waters. And also smiled broadly at a former prowler, one of the boats I fished years ago, with its 5 outriggers and ability to tow 8 trolled flatlines, numbering 13 in total, and occasionally catching as many as 10 school tuna on a single pass, thanks to the troll valve I had on that 671 GM. And it was a pleasure to watch each tagged fish hurriedly swim away to contribute to over 1,000 marked fish, bluefin, by a season's end. Anyone who runs a large charter boat, it's not a one-man deal. Prior to wiring a large shark or leadering a beefy bluefin or quieting a hefty striper before tagging requires a lot of talent. And that young man who was speaking previously here, Paul Asimo, would be remiss if you didn't listen to what he was saying. Over my 50 years of career game fish tagging, 43 of my own open ocean marked fish have come back to my tagged hands. Days, weeks, months, and years later, recaptured from nearly the same forage-rich area that they were initially tagged in. Irrefutable proof that many sport fishing species have repeat forage area memory. Their memory's better than mine. Releasing a tagged game fish was, and still is, one of the biggest thrills that I've ever had, simply because it offers the possibility, thanks to tagging, of increasing our scientific knowledge about migratory game fish behavior. And thanks to my clients and friends, the numbers of game fish marked by me now push 60,000. Many of my tagged fish have been recaptured from U.S., as well as Canadian, European, and other foreign country waters, again greatly enhancing our knowledge about bluefin tuna. During Gifford's era, our fisheries resources were quite abundant, whereas the opposite is true today. But I believe if Gifford were still alive, he too would be practicing conservation for science, tagging as well. In today's world, it's my clients, not me, far from it, who collectively deserve this prestigious Gifford Award. For if it were not for their help, I wouldn't be standing here this evening to represent Gifford's talents, his vigor, his knowledge and skill, all of which created his legendary angling achievement that we are recognizing this evening. Thank you. How do we do, okay?
Yep, just lost my shoe. Introducing our next award winner will be Captain Barkey Garnsey. Barkey, please come up and come up with some really nice things to say about Christian Benezei.
Good evening. How everybody doing? This is really a pleasure for me. These folks over here just came over from Paris to help Christian accept this reward. I was going to do this, obviously they're from France. I was going to do this originally in French and English, but because Mike ran just a little long in the introduction, I'm just going to have to keep it to English. In fact, I may not be able to say anything at all. Let me see. Christian Benezei was born in 1947 in the south of France. And at the very young age, he began fishing and hunting with his father. In the early 1970s, he moved to East Africa, where he discovered safaris, game fishing, and began running the Yamani Safari Camp in Somalia. Remember the Somalia part. Christian started fishing in the Atlantic Ocean in the 1980s. Encouraged by Pierre Dupuis, who was a sport fishing pioneer in West Africa, there he continued to run fishing camps and began serving as an IGFA representative from 1987 to 1998. Okay, here we go. In Mauritania and Senegal. It is here that Benezei set the first IGFA world records, mainly light tackle sailfish records, with angler John Paul Richard, who I'm sure most of you have heard of. Christian has gone on to set as an angler and the captain more than 20 IGFA records in light tackle and fly. More recently in the Ivory Coast, he operated a charter boat and concentrated on blue marlin, often catching fish of more than 1,000 pounds. Today, he continues to fish for blue marlin and white marlin in West African countries from Equatorial Guinea, Ghana, to Morocco with Laurent Sayon, one of the best anglers of this period. For the past 30 years, Benezei has promoted catch and release with local anglers, mates, and other captains, as well as the conservation of fishing areas. Later this week, Christian will be honored by the Billfish Foundation for the second consecutive year as the top tagging captain for Atlantic white marlin. And one thing, if you notice this, as I went through the places that Christians fished in Africa, and actually there's a lot more than I talked about, he has a proclivity for fishing in a war zone that I never really enjoyed. I haven't figured that out in total. I fished a lot in West Africa, and that's where I first met Christian. And because this is the International Game Fish Association, and part of that committee, we were all searching for people from around the world that really deserve this award. So I had the opportunity to talk to 2 or 3 principals in the French Big Game Fishing Club, and I asked them if they would tell me the one guy from France or anywhere that they knew of that really deserved this award. And unanimously, they all said Christian, without a doubt. The lucky part about that was I'd happened to have met Christian, and I had the good fortune of having fished with him before. And maybe they've got a picture here of Pete and I, and that one right there when we were a little bit younger. But there's a little story behind it. Pete and I were, and Mr. Stuart Campbell and my mate Kelly, were fishing in West Africa, and we were using a little 31 Bertram. And we fished a few days, and then the boat broke down. So if you can imagine being in West Africa, you just don't go around the corner, you don't go to Merritt's Boat Yard and you get it fixed. You got to kind of work at it just a little bit. Actually, it might take almost as long in West. No, I'm not going to go there. So that's another story. So I'm in trouble. I could see it. Oh boy, I'll never get out of there. But anyway, so we're stuck. We can't go fishing. So there's a beautiful boat right behind us, a 34 Hatteras, and it was the queen of the fleet. I mean, nobody had a boat like this in West Africa. Christian was the captain. So Pete and I were discussing what we're going to do. We're going to rent a panga or what we're going to do, and Pete says, I know John Paul Richard. I'll call him and see if we can charter his boat. So we did, and John Paul said, no, you can't charter the boat, just take it. So he called Christian, and the next day we go fishing. And we were fishing for some kind of light tackle record. And it's a kind of embarrassing story, but I might as well go ahead and tell it. The first day we go out, and Christian, of course, running the boat. And the deal was that once we got out there and started fishing, then I'd run the boat. That was probably a mistake. But so we just go out. And Christian obviously knows a lot more about Côte d'Ivoire than I do, so he's running the boat. And we start fishing. We run 10, 12 miles offshore. We start fishing. And I'd never been on a 34 Hatteras before. The steering wheel's kind of here, and then over here there's 2 little sets of double controls, those old Morris controls. There's a black one and a red one, and there might have been 2 black ones and 2 red ones, and it might have been a black one and a red one and a black one and a red one. I wasn't really sure. So we get ready to go fishing, and Christian stops. This is the spot. So I ask him which one's the throttle, and he points it out, and I push it up. And 8 hours later, we haven't had a bite, and we go in. And as soon as we get ready to go in, I'll let Christian run the boat because he knows where home is, and we go in, have a few bottles of Vino Tinto, and the next day we do it again. The next morning we go out, and we're just getting ready, we're near the edge, we want to stop, and we see some tunas busting. So Christian says, this must be a good place, so we stop. We start putting the lures out. We maybe had them 30 seconds in the water, up pops the blue marlin. We throw the 8 kg over, and we got them on. I really should have studied which one was the red one and which one was the black one. Because I know everybody in here does a lot of fishing, and you guys understand that when you're fishing light tackle, you really do have to hurry. So we drop back, we got them on, and the fight's on, and I immediately throw it in reverse, turning about 2800 RPM, and the thing starts going like this, and everybody starts screaming, and Christian's going, Barkey, 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 and I'm thinking, I'm doing something wrong, but I don't know how to stop. So I shift, and I go ahead, and I go into neutral, and I go back and forth, and everything's banging and slamming, and pretty soon the poor fish is totally terrified. He comes up and jumps. Pete grabs the leader, we gaff him, and it's over. About 10 minutes into the deal, and one really nice set of transmissions later, and I'm thinking, boy, Christian's really impressed with me. I can tell right now. Well, he's a real good guy, because he commented on the way in that they had been fishing for that world record for a couple of years. And me, who didn't know the red knobs from the black knobs, we ended up catching it on the second day. I can't begin to tell you folks that when you're traveling as far out as we did for many, many years and fish, what a pleasure it is to meet people like Christian and the people from his country that helped us as much as they did. So it's my real pleasure to introduce these two young ladies that are going to come up here, I hope. And I'm going to say their names correctly, I hope. Stephanie Belez and Joanna Benezei.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here tonight to celebrate my father's career and his involvement in sport fishing since more than 30 years now. Sorry, Daddy, for the number of years. To illustrate, I won't talk you too much about his world records as a captain or as an angler, but I'd rather talk about my own experience being his daughter. My father started teaching me how to fish when I was about 3 years old. At that time, we were living in West Africa, and he showed me how to catch sea bass from the pier. That was the first time. Later, he took me miles away from the coast, explaining me how to skip a boat, how to read the ocean, and track fishes. While fishing mahi-mahi and sailfishes, he also explained how to tease fishes and which bait to use for what kind of fishes. Later on again, when I started to aim at bigger fishes like tuna, blue or white marlins on light tackle, he pointed out the importance of the equipment and how to use it well. Set the drag, feel the fish and the pressure on the line, that kind of things. All these years long, and still today, each fishing day spent together is joyful and fun. Maybe because passionate people share their passion with no limits, no boundaries. Tonight, I'm very proud that my father is being recognized for his passion. Thank you for listening.
Merci, Joanna. Bravo, Christian. Okay, just if you allow me a couple of words in French, because our captain right there is not too fluent in English. So the poor him, he's not getting everything what we're talking about. So, j'ai juste demandé l'autorisation, Christian, de te donner quelques mots en français, parce qu'on sait très bien que toi et l'anglais, c'est, you know, the French guys and the English, that's the proof right there. Donc, Christian, écoute, c'est un honneur pour moi et je vais prendre la parole aussi pour mon ami et ton pêcheur Laurent. C'est un honneur pour nous de te voir récompensé pour le talent que tu as en tant que capitaine, en tant que professeur, en tant que pêcheur. Et c'est un honneur pour moi d'être là et de parler pour toi. Voilà, je vais prendre en anglais. Okay, sorry about that. A little bit nervous. No speech done. And I will do it now in English for you guys. So, as I just said, I have no speech ready, so it's just going to come out of the heart as it should, I guess, somehow. So, in fact, my experience with Christians started about almost 13, 14 years ago in Western Africa, Ivory Coast. I went there with a couple of friends that some people here know, especially on my table, to fish the blue marlins, the well-known blue marlins of Western Africa. And when we came there, we met Christians. So we were like, okay, let's go out with Christian. Let's have a look. Let's see how it goes. The first thing, when we came on a boat, he was like, okay, do you know the rules about sport fishing? And we're like, yeah, a couple of them. Which one? Yeah, IGFA rules. I was like, yeah, we do. I said, okay, let's try that. So we fished. It went well. And over the years, what we could see through this man over there who doesn't really speak English but reads French, learned the rules, played by the rules, and made everybody play by the rules in any countries he went in Western Africa, and therefore is for me one of the best IGFA representative in the Western African part. And it's very important for me, for him, for his daughter, for his angler, and everybody, that he get recognized, because as you know, the European countries, it's way smaller. The sport fishing community is not existing, very tiny. And having such a captain, and another one sitting at his table as well that is less known, Mr. Bertrand Vachette from Senegal as well, they need to get known. And I don't know, I'll stop it right here, but I'll say that I'm very proud for him. He's very proud, and he should be. And I hope that he's going to be around for a couple of years teaching the next generation, which is ours, so that we can learn to the next generation as well what is going on in sport fishing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Christian is a rock star on that side of the world. Captain Christian Benezei, come on up here and get your award, please. Barky Garndy, please come back up here. And for the photo, real quick, Stephanie, come back up here, please. Johanna, come back up here, please. Stefan, for the photo, real quick. I'd like to have the family here real quick. While they're making their way up, if anybody wants coffee or dessert, since Mike took so much damn time up here, coffee and desserts down there. We're going to be a while. Now you got to get on the mic. Stand up straight.
If I get down, I won't get up.
Look at the blonde.
It's easy to do.
Marlon, left ringer. I know Christian's the man of few words. I know he's just going to say thank you, but Christian, you are the man over there. Thank you. I even got to fish next to him over there, and he is an awesome, awesome captain, and he set the path over there for everybody. Thank you for being you.
Thank you very much.
That's it? Just say it real loud. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. And le puedo hablar si quieren un poco español.
You can say it all in French. I don't care. Say it all in French.
En French. Mais je suis très reconnaissant pour la remise de ce trophée, surtout par des personnes comme Skip et Barky, ainsi que toute l'équipe.
Je traduirai en même temps.
D'accord. Ainsi que toute l'équipe de l'IGFA, qui est vraiment une institution qui nous fait défaut en Europe, et on vient la chercher chez vous ici aux États-Unis parce qu'on n'a pas l'équivalent en Europe. Donc, c'est surtout, je suis très content de pouvoir continuer à pêcher encore avec toute l'équipe de jeunes qui m'accompagne pendant ce petit séjour ici. J'ai une très bonne équipe pour la relève derrière. Et j'espère qu'on va continuer encore quelques années à pouvoir pêcher. Et puis, voilà, je vous remercie beaucoup et je suis très content d'être parmi vous ce soir. Bonsoir.
Barky, what did he say?
I'll translate.
Go ahead. No, I'm kidding with Barky.
Okay, so the words of Christian were like, he's really proud and grateful to have been honored by his peers, especially taken out of such a remote place, as he said. He's also grateful to come to the IGFA, get an award, if we can say so, as in Europe, as I said earlier, there is basically nothing. So he had to come all the way to the US, being as a French guy, and come and take one of your trophies. So he's quite proud of that one. And he hopes to come back soon again.
Thank you. And that's why it's called the International Game Fish Association. Captain Gary Stew, would you make your way up here to the podium so we can honor Mr. Emmett Mutt Coble? Wait till you hear the story about this guy. This guy was absolutely the ultimate deckhand of deckhands. He set the way for all deckhands today. I wish there was more deckhands here to really appreciate this guy because he was the man everywhere. Gary, take over.
E. Mutt. Every time I'd answer the phone and he was on it, it would be E. Mutt. If somebody ever played his life, it would be John Wayne. Or if they ever did John Wayne's life, E. Mutt would be the actor. He was, the first thing I think about, every time I think about Mutt, he was a mate's mate. He was a professional, and he took his trade real serious. He was real conscientious about his baits. He was never dozing off. He was one of the first, of our peers to go to Australia and work for Peter Wright. And the thing about Mutt was he never went anywhere without a camera. So when he'd come back after the marlin season, he'd always have a screening, invite us over, and we'd be seeing, what his season was like. And most of our conversations on the phone, we were always talking about f-stops and different kinds of Kodachrome and different kinds of film. We didn't talk about fishing that much, but a funny story about Mutt, 1965, I had a brand new Pontiac GTO, and we had just gotten through tuna season, and I had seen Mutt over there, and what are you gonna do this summer? I don't know, I gotta go somewhere. There wasn't much going on in South Florida back then, so I said, I think I'm gonna drive up to Montauk. They got a tournament up there, and I got a friend of mine that wants to go. So he said, well, you got any room? I said, well, we got a back seat. Mutt was a pretty big guy. And anyway, we jumped in this thing about 8 o'clock in the morning. I met him down at Ryvich's boatyard, and we drove straight through to New York. God knows how fast we were going. We were doing 100 miles an hour. Mutt was in the back seat the whole time. I think he went into hibernation, so he didn't have to squeeze it in and out of there to go to the head when we'd make a gas stop. That's about the only time he ever stirred. And every time I think of Mutt, I see him laying in that back seat with that ball cap pulled over his face, napping. Another thing about that summer was he had bought a watch, and he was real proud of it, and it was a gold Rolex. And I'm saying, yeah, that's pretty nice. None of us knew what a Rolex was. He said, yeah, I got it used. I said, yeah, what's something like that worth? He said, it cost me $600. I said, $600 for a watch? I said, you got to be kidding me. He says, well, I had the money and I always wanted one of these. Well, anyway, a few years ago, I had a little bit of cash and I found a used one too. And every time I look at this thing to check the time, I always think of Mutt. I mean, he was a good friend. And like I said, he set a good example. If I had taken a job running a boat for a new boss, the first thing I would do would be if I couldn't hire Mutt, I would hire somebody like Mutt just to make a good impression, because he could make you look good. And that's the way he went about his business. And we still used to talk. When he quit fishing, he would call me up and we'd have long conversations. And I want to thank Tim and Scott for coming up here, driving down here, because they probably knew Mutt better than I did. But he was a great guy, and like I said, it's good to be in his company now, or have him in our company, and that's all I got to say about that. Thank you. I'm sure Peter can add a few lines about Mutt.
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple words about Mutt. First of all, I'd like to thank Scott Salazar. I couldn't find his name, I couldn't find any information on him, but he had a complete history of Mutt, photographs and everything, which I gave to.
We have it.
We have it here now. And can people come look at it? Is it in a museum or what is it?
Scott donated it to the IGFA tonight.
Scott donated this to the IGFA. Mutt was in World War II. He had a ship sunk out from underneath him. He played baseball. When he was in his 50s, he was working for me in Australia, and he prided himself on his athletic ability. I used to like to eat these little things of raisins. I'd get 2 packs, one for me and one for Mutt. As I walked by Mutt, I'd go, "Mutt," and throw the raisin. He'd go, "I still got it." And he's a hell of a man, and it's a real pleasure to have seen him get into this. Thank you very much.
I know that Peter and Gary will be up here with Rob Kramer. Come on up to accept the award for Mutt Coble. There's so many stories about Mutt, we couldn't even tell them all tonight. Mutt was really CP's predecessor. I mean, Mutt filmed stuff on 16 millimeter out there in Australia. He took photos. He was just above and beyond, besides being an awesome wireman and deckhand, and he was a deckhand his whole career right to the very end. So on behalf of Mutt Coble, you two please accept the award with Mr. Rob Kramer. Move over that way. Thank you, gentlemen. If anybody wants to look at this later, take a quick flip through. We'll leave it out here for everybody to look at it. But it's got pictures of Mutt when he was playing semi-pro baseball, semi-pro football. This guy was the ultimate guy, and then he fell in love with fishing, and that was the end of him. 50 years later, gave up all the sports to go fishing. At this time, I'm going to ask Captain Gary Ellis to come up so we may talk about Jose Wahebe. Gary Ellis, please come up. You're welcome. No time restraints, nothing.
No time restraints. Good grief. The last time they wanted to get the hook, I spent a little too long up here. But I couldn't spend a long time for any one person more than we should spend some time up here talking about a great man, Jose. It's an honor to be a member of this fraternity of legendary captain and crew. And I'm sure all of the recipients of the Legendary Captain and Crew Awards since its inception are honored to have Jose Wahebe join them as a member of the Legendary Captain and Crew. Jose has been a huge part of our Redbone Celebrity Tournament Series, and of course you know the reason that I care so much about guides is that all the fishing guides that fish the Redbone Tournament Series donate one day. And when you add that up, about 30 tournaments or 25 tournaments around the country and around the world, and if you add all of that up, they're the fishing guide is the largest sponsor that we have of the Redbone Celebrity Tournament Series for cystic fibrosis. Jose was a big part of that. To give you his history, Cuban-born Jose Wahebe's father taught him to fish at an early age in Miami, Biscayne Bay. Jose became passionate about fishing, reading all he could, sending handmade flies to his heroes like Stu Apt and Flip Pallett, Lefty Cray. In return, they shared their knowledge with a man and encouraged his love of the sport and of the ocean. Jose purchased his first skiff in his early teens. For several years, he worked at the Miami Aquarium as a diver and then a trainer. But he really wanted to be out on the water every day. And not long after receiving his captain's license at age 18, he became a full-time inshore guide. On his travels to Costa Rica, Venezuela, Cabo San Lucas, he gained additional knowledge and back home began fishing offshore in tournaments, but he always made time for teaching his next generation and for his extensive work with countless charities. Now, that was all a script that was provided by the IGFA for me. But when it comes to charities, when I mention countless charities, that's including the Redbone Celebrity Tournament Series. And what he's done for us has been incredible and never stopped. Back in 1993, Jerry McInnes called and asked me to put together two teams, two anglers, two guides, two celebrities, to fish the SLAM, the Redbone Southernmost Light Tackle Anglers Masters in Key West. Once again, that's for cystic fibrosis, part of the Redbone series. And I of course, picked Jose because he was a natural. He was a great fisherman, a good-looking guy, and a personality. So I put him together, and that was the beginning. In 1995, his TV show, Spanish Fly, first aired on ESPN, was an immediate hit, a perfect blend of cutting-edge technology, spectacular video, a flamenco guitar soundtrack, and Jose's charismatic style. Legions of fans continue to honor the memory of the engaging host who always found it easy to show people what the coolest things about fishing are, and rather than just tell them about another fish story. Jose gave so much and never asked for anything back. The most particular story I need to say, I'm here just to introduce people to talk about Jose, but after his show aired, we had a young man that went to I'm trying to think of the organization, where a young child asks for Make-A-Wish Foundation. The Make-A-Wish Foundation, where a young man told the Make-A-Wish Foundation that I want to fish down on the Florida Keys with one of the famous guides. And Jose volunteered to be a part of that. And the young man, Christian Goodpasture, came down and fished with Jose. And their relationship never ended. Jose kept bringing him back down, fished the Redbone tournaments with him. It was an incredible relationship he created with this young man with cystic fibrosis. And when the young man passed away, Jose flew to his funeral and has given so much back to our charity. Let me introduce the people that know him well, that have had a long friendship, a great relationship with that great man, and what a great memory of this guy. Let me bring up Rod Fordyce. Please come on up and Dave Pfeiffer. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I had a very long friendship with Jose. It was a very unique friendship and one that ran very deep. I don't use the word best friend. Very broad. I've had maybe 3 best friends in my life, and Jose was one of them. My first encounter with Jose was secondhand, actually. He and I both shared a friend called Flip Pallet, and I'm sure all of you know who he is. I was fortunate as a very young age to befriend Flip at the age of 9, and he kind of took me under his wing, and we spent many days in the outdoors together, hunting and fishing. And when I got a little older in high school and got very serious about saltwater fishing, I was fishing the Met and fishing tournaments and doing all kinds of things. Flip kept mentioning this name, Jose Wahebe, that you need to meet this guy. You know, he's a guy similar to your age, and he shares the same passion as you. And, you know, being a young, excuse my bluntness, but dumbass teenager, you know, you just kind of blow it off. But I did finally meet Jose. And we ran into each other at one of Gary's tournaments, as a matter of fact. And once we realized who we were talking to, Flip had done the same thing with him. He had over the years said, you need to meet this guy, Rob Fordyce, and so forth, so on. And it didn't take long that about 3 weeks after the first day we met, that we were fishing together. And from that day forward, there was a bond that was a brotherhood. And it was just natural. We got along with each other. We realized we both shared the same passions in fishing. We both had this desire to know everything. And that was one unique thing about Jose amongst all the people that I've met in the fishing world. There's a few, there's a handful, but not many that share this same common trait that you're never satisfied with what you know. So you keep this passion going and going and going. Always trying to learn new techniques and new ways to fish, different fish. Always trying to be best at what you do. But that, I don't think, is why Jose deserves this award. Gary said it best, that Jose had a passion for sharing his knowledge and sharing his emotional touch with nature, with people who were less opportunistic. And over the years, Jose, when he and I would do films together and do shows and so forth and so on, the cameras weren't there. You know, he had this ability to bring the best out of me, and I felt like I did the same with him. And the cameras were just there for the ride. But he didn't just share that with me. He shared that with many. He's one of the few guys that I've ever seen that shared his passion with more people. I mean, I'm a pretty isolated guy, you know. I don't open myself up to everybody. And he didn't either. We shared that. But, you know, the Miami Boat Show's coming up. Every year we made a point of going to lunch at least one day during the Miami Boat Show every year for 15 years. And never once, the more famous he got, you know, in nationwide TV and so forth, so on, never once did I ever see him object a fan to coming up and asking to talk to him. Not only did he talk to him, not only did he sign their hat or sign their shirt or sign their arm or whatever it was at the time, he would sit there and want to hear their story. And if that's not an ambassador of this sport, I don't know what is. I mean, many times I was very hungry, and it would take us 3 hours to go to lunch, you know? I'm very honored to be up here talking about somebody that I called my best friend, and there's no one more deserving than an award like this, because he is a true ambassador to sport fishing, and he had the ability to share the world that we all love and appreciate, and some of us make a living at. He shared that with the world and made them feel like they were along for the ride. And that's a gift that you're born with. Very, very few people have it, and he did, and he deserves this award more than anybody. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's truly an honor to be here this evening and speaking on behalf of and in memory of Captain Jose Wahebe. And as I put my thoughts together tonight, believe me, I can tell a lot of very funny stories about Jose. Not everything went as smoothly as it looked on camera, and Jose could poke fun with the best of it, of anyone, and he loved when people made fun of him. But without him sitting there tonight looking back, that just didn't seem right. So really where to start? Jose's angling accomplishments are widely known and recognized, and I certainly couldn't do them any justice in a few minutes here this evening. I think everyone is pretty well aware of them. There are many aspects of a great captain, as we've all heard and continue to hear this evening when speaking of the other accomplished captains this evening. The things that made Jose a great captain also made him a great man, a great friend, and a great father. I had the good fortune of growing up in the fishing business over almost 25 years with Jose, and saw firsthand his drive to continually improve himself and his abilities. And again, as we've heard tonight, I think that's a common trait amongst all great captains and anglers. Like most of us, Jose's early experience was devoted, of course, to catching fish anywhere, anytime, in any condition, by any technique he could find. And this is where Jose developed such an innovative spirit. As he broke away from traditional techniques, he demanded more and more from himself and from all of his gear. In doing so, he pushed all of his associated companies to build products that could meet his demands. In his early days as a field tester, he regularly sent me boxes and boxes full of reels and rods that were just destroyed. Some of them literally in a matter of days. He was very good at that. And one time after receiving this box of just what had become junk, and maybe I have to be honest and say our products weren't as good back then either, I asked him if he ever took care of anything. And for any of you who've seen Jose on TV or had a chance to talk to him, he just gave me that smile through that mustache that you saw earlier on screen and said, "Bro, you don't pay me to take care of things." So I'm sure Mercury and Ray Marine, CV, you've probably all experienced the same thing. In fact, I was at CV when Jose's boat came back for a little, as he called it, just a little refurbishing, and I think it needed a bit more than that. Back then, he was still guiding close to full-time, and I think the unique and very fun thing about fishing with Jose was that he did what his people wanted to do, not what he wanted to do. He simply wanted everyone to have a good time. And he definitely had competitive anglers, and in that case, Jose could be the most competitive captain you could imagine. And you'd better be ready to handle all of that competitiveness if it was one of those days. Then Jose moved from guiding and field testing into his television show, as was mentioned previously. He wanted that experience to be real and unlike any show that had been on or was on at the time. He wanted people to see the good times and the tough times on the water as an angler and a captain experiences. There never was a need to prove how many fish he could catch. He wanted to show the experience of catching a fish in a particular way. While he was mostly on the camera, Jose also orchestrated much of the filming to capture the experience as it was or was about to happen, as only an experienced captain could. Again, this drove Jose to continually improve himself and innovate himself on the water and in the public eye. He was also very interested in capturing the spirit of local fisheries and the people that made them happen. We were talking one day about fishing in California and how he really wanted to capture the deep tradition of tuna fishing. But he wanted to blend innovative light tackle East Coast techniques from a center console rather than the traditional big sport boat live bait experience. I had a small center console boat in California at the time, so he came out to fish and film for a week. And I know many of you haven't fished in California, but it's nowhere near as easy or convenient as it is out here on the East Coast. And for 3 days in a row, we trailered my small boat 50 miles from Orange County to San Diego every morning at 2 a.m. We'd launch, run 50 miles to the tuna grounds, and we would catch a few fish in a very specific way. There were fish everywhere, and we could have caught 50 fish a day by traditional techniques, but that wasn't what mattered to him. We'd get in late, haul the boat, do it all over again the next day. Jose stayed up late into the night looking at the footage to see what exactly he had and what he wanted. After 3 days of this, I was exhausted. The film crew was exhausted. We just had finished a big dinner, and we all thought we were finally done with what had sounded like a really good idea at the start. Jose came to me, though, and he said, again, bro. And you never know if anything was going to be good or bad following bro, but he said, bro, I need to get one more shot of a fish to tie all this together. We just need one more fish. Getting that one fish meant another long drive, another long run, the long drive home. You all know what I'm talking about. And believe me, everybody, myself, the film crew was angry that morning at 2 a.m. except for Jose. He was on a mission to get this done, and we got that one shot, and he was happy. But that was Jose. Guiding, field testing, filming, or just fishing with people, he always got that one more shot to turn any day or any catch from good to great. He involved local communities in his shows, always fishing with local experts. He would blend their deep knowledge with his unique abilities to show local fisheries in an entirely new light. When he discovered the incredible fishery in Venice, Louisiana, he first went down and he fished with the local captains, Rimmer, others, their way. Then he'd come back with his boat and invite them to fish with him in all the ways that he wanted to catch fish. He did it in Crooked Island in Panama with Carter. I met Terry earlier. There's many people in this room that experienced that with Jose over the years. But he always invested in the people in the communities to bring that story and that fishery to life. Jose's passion for fishing never waned, and rather than hide from the public eye, he wanted to share his good fortune and talents with those facing serious life challenges. He wanted to make fishing dreams come true for those who could not do it on their own. Through Make-A-Wish, as was mentioned earlier, Wounded Warriors, and other programs, Jose connected with people and helped them catch that one fish of their dreams. Some of these were captured on film in his shows, and some were not. The more well-known one being Christian Goodpasture, as was mentioned earlier. A young man facing insurmountable odds, Jose took him tarpon fishing in Key West. Many of you probably know this show, but when Christian hooked his tarpon, it swam around a series of docks, and without hesitating, Jose stripped down to his underwear on camera and jumped in and swam the rod around the docks, gave it back to Christian, and Christian caught that one fish, that fish he needed for his life. So of course I could go on, but I'm going to end right here where I started, that Jose was a great captain like he was a great man. a giving and loyal friend and father that found so many ways to share his accomplishments with the world. I'd like to thank the IGFA and all the people involved with recognizing Jose with this great award. Thank you.
Dave, could you stay up here, please? Thank you, Dave Pfeiffer. At this time, I'd like to ask Christy Wahebe to come up here and accept the award. Rob, would you please come back up also for the photo? If anybody knows, Dave Pfeiffer is president of Shimano America. You've all used Shimanos. We thank Shimano for supporting Jose all these years. Rob Kramer, you here? Yep. Thank you. Chrissy, you got a few words for us?
All right, guys, I might get a little bit emotional, but just bear with me here.
It's all yours. You just relax and have a great time and honor Dad.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody for their support over the past 2 years, and hopefully many more to come. As far as our board members and our advisory members, I'm going to mention the people who are here today, because the list would be long, because we have so much support. We have 2 of our board members, Dave Pfeiffer, or Fifey, as my dad would say, is here today, and Mr. Davis, or Ken Davis, who enjoyed steak dinners, and this is really gross, but they're interested in women. So, in saying that, Ken, Dave, I just want to say, really, I have lost my father, but there have been a lot of you that have filled in places that were needed, and I really appreciate it. Our advisory board members, we have John Brownlee here, we have Ariel, we have Carter Andrews, we have Larry Renkin, we have Rob, and Jason, I'm not going to feel bad about this because everybody butchers my last name, Schwatweiser. Did I get it? I'm not going to feel bad about that one, but you guys are awesome, and I really appreciate it. Costa, you guys are awesome. Amanda, Dave, all you guys, you have been there. Jenny, you guys have really helped out in so many ways, more than one. Shimano, Pfeiffer, again, Chris Russell, you guys are amazing. Mercury, I know John's stuck in a very, very cold place, and I'm sorry about that. CV, Ariel, John, you guys are amazing. You have helped me out in so many different positions where I need a spot for the foundation because it's our first year and we don't have any money. So we post up at your station. I really appreciate it. It's helped a lot. Ray Marine, Larry, you're awesome. I appreciate all your help. Most of all, I want to thank my grandma for raising the man and a fishing icon that we can call Jose Wahebe. And can I just say, she is the cutest grandma ever. She's so cute. She's right there, just in case you want to. She's awesome. Anywho, just something that Dave brought up earlier, talking about my dad breaking everything and, you know, sending it back to him. When he said that, it kind of jogged up a story. We had a dining room, but half of the dining room table was taken up by fishing flies and all the feathers and everything, and the other half was pieces of Shimano reels. So I understand. We would eat on the floor on a towel in front of the TV instead of on the dining room. So it was awesome. I liked it way better. So thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. So when I found out about this, I got a call from Mike. It was a couple months ago, and he told me he had some really exciting news. So when Mike Myatt calls you, and he's like, I have some exciting news. I'm like, okay, yay. This is going to be awesome. He told me that my dad had been awarded the legendary Captain and Crew Award. I was stoked. I asked him what he needed from me, and he said all I needed was for you to come up here and accept the award. Fine, perfect, I can do that. He said, okay, it's during the boat show, so I started to get a little nervous. Like, it's on Valentine's Day. I'm like, oh no, which is Saturday. And I was really excited when he first told me, and then I kind of got silent. And he's like, what's the matter? I'm like, well, I'm getting married on Saturday, so. I said, Mike, I really can't get out of that one. Well, at least not yet. I don't want to yet, so I can't get out of it. So I was bummed. I wasn't going to be able to be here, but still the fact that your father is going to be recognized as a legend, it was still amazing. So a few months went by. I got another call from Mike. And he said, we're on a snorkeling trip with Moat Marine, with the foundation that we started for my father. We were on a group with our veterans, and we were showing them different coral reef restorations areas, different coral nurseries and whatnot. Mike calls me and tells me, well, there was a couple conflicts as far as the dates goes, so we moved the date to Wednesday. I hung up the phone. I was excited. I hung up the phone, and one of our veterans, Abdiel, looked at me and, was teary-eyed and whatnot, and he's like, I hope those are happy tears. Like, they are. And that's one of the really cool things about our foundation is we're able to bond with these different kids, with these different veterans, and kind of just pass it on. And he understood. Anyways, I'm getting a little off track. So I really appreciate all you guys who couldn't make the previous date. So I could be here too, so thank you. I'm really happy to be here. So my father was one of my best friends. He was my mentor, my confidant, and my idol as a father. I never really knew him as a fisherman. So obviously, I knew he had a fishing show, but I never knew that people watched it or much less looked up to him the way I did. And I'm very fortunate to, when I think about who my heroes are, I'm able to say my parents. Over the past 2 years, I'm still amazed about how many people he touched and the immense amount of loss that was expressed about my dad's passing and still seems to be endless in a good way. So what did my dad do to make him a legendary fisherman? Well, he was a jack of all trades. He was a fisherman, he was a teacher, he was a dad, he was a son. He was a friend, a pilot, a pioneer, a conservationist, a humanitarian, and an amazing soul. He was a passionate student of the natural world. His skill as an underwater cameraman was a natural extension over the years he spent free diving, just observing fish behavior. He kept copious notes on what he learned, whether above or below the water, and was eager to share with others. Jose made everybody feel like they were his friend, and that's not an easy thing to do. He always made sure others were happy before he was. He gave himself and his time and his help to whoever who needed it. His heart was so big and showed in all of what he did. His respect for the sport and genuine love of fishing came through loud and clear in every single show. He was the man that many, many men would like to be. His love for fishing shines through every show with no effort. No matter what he's catching, he's still like a kid in a candy store every time, and was just happy to see someone else doing the catching instead of him. His spirit lives on through those he loves and who respected him. The show is back on the air, so his wisdom can be passed down to the next generation. The Jose Wahebe Spanish Fly Memorial Foundation was founded in April of 2012. Our mission is to continue his legacy by making fishing dreams come true. The foundation has ignited a passion for fishing for many of our recipients, as well as keeping his memory alive. One quote that I actually, Google has saved my career in a lot of ways. You just type your question into Google, and I actually Googled legacy quotes, and one of them that I found that I think fits him very well is, "Carve your name on hearts, not tombstones. The legacy is etched into minds of others and stories they share about you." Thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.
What an honor. Thank you, everybody. I can't only thank you for not honoring only Chrissy and Wahebe, but I appreciate everybody's silence and your respect and the way everybody stayed here tonight. It's pretty awesome that you all have that in you. Last but not least, according to the alphabet, we'll be honoring Captain Peter B. Wright. It's late. Let all the stories fly.
I'm not so sure I can do that. I could easily tell the stories about Captain Peter B. Wright. That would take longer than Captain Gary Stuve and Captain Chip Schaefer's acceptance speeches put together. But I'm going to try not to do that since Mike and Skip both told me I couldn't do that. But I first met Pete back in 1973 in Cairns, Australia. I was fortunate enough to be fishing on one of the finer boats there, a boat called the Panawanica, with my friend and mentor, Charlie Hayden, who is a past recipient of the Tommy Gifford Award. Peter B. was fishing on one of the more basic vessels at the time. I say basic, and that's put lightly, called the Restless II. I'd only been fishing on the Barrier Reef a few days when I was fortunate enough, with Charlie's Hayden's help and Garrick Agnew as the angler, to catch a 1,417-pound black marlin. Needless to say, I was in heaven. I had about 1 week to bathe in my glory when Peter B. come along with the Restless II, the lesser boat, and knocked me right from the front seat in the back seat with a 1,442-pound, which is still the largest black marlin ever caught on the Barrier Reef in Australia. But I must have done something right that season, because Peter asked me to work on the deck for him the next year. In 1974, Peter took the plans of a 40-foot Walter Voss boat to a boat builder in Innisfail, Australia, named Frank Woodnut. And he had him build a boat called the Hooker for an Australian gentleman named John Pelton. What a character. As all new boats, it was late getting finished, and we arrived in Cairns late September from Innisfail and left the very next morning with the owner, John Pelton, heading to Linden Bank for our first day fishing. We were fishing a 130-pound rig on one side and a 20-pound rig on the other. We had fished about an hour or so when Peter decided that we needed to be further up reef. So we took off for number 5 ribbon, about 70, 80 miles on up the reef. At that time, very few boats made that trip in one day. We arrived there in the afternoon, put the baits out, and the first fish that came in the spread was to the 20-pound. We did our little Peter Wright dance, I call it, for a short bit and captured the fish, which measured up to be a possible world record on 20-pound. We took it to the mothership, and it weighed 420 pounds, which was definitely going to be a record on 20-pound at that time. So Peter decided that the only way we could weigh this and be a record was to go back to Cairns. It had to be weighed not on the mothership, but on land. So Peter, myself, and the other Aussie deckhand named Billy Spooner went out of opening at number 5 ribbon right at dusk. With nothing but a compass and using time and distance and a fathom meter, we ran 80 miles back down the reef in the dark and found Linden Bank by fathom meter, by depth. When we got to the south end of the bank, we took a course for the channel leading to Cairns and ran through the reef, 32 miles to Cairns. We weighed the fish around midnight, and it weighed the same, 420 pounds. It was a new 20-pound test world record. So the first fish on the new boat that Peter had built in Innisfail was a brand new world record. That year ended up being my most successful year on the reef. Captain Peter at the helm, 137 blacks, 6 over 1,000, 7 over 900, in 69 days fishing. But Peter may or may not agree with this, but this is in my journals. The first 3 fish we caught over 1,000 pounds that season, we gaffed in less than 5 minutes each. So the bottom line was, if you wanted to catch a big fish in a hurry, Captain Peter Wright was your man. Now to jump forward 20 years. In 1995, there was a bluefin tuna bite off Hatteras, North Carolina, that was unheard of. Peter brought a 40-foot G&S boat named the Raptor up from Florida to chase the bluefins. There was a daily competition among the boats to see who could catch the most tunas. Peter and I called Stuart Campbell in Houston, Texas, to tell him about the number of bluefins and how they were biting. A couple of days later, Stuart flew in, and Captain Gary Stuve and Charlie Hayden drove up from Florida. Once Stuart realized that we were into the numbers game, he said that if we wanted to, he'd catch every fish we could get a bite on. So Peter, Gary, John Rafter, and I were truly excited about this opportunity. We left the dock with a cockpit full of menhadens for the chum, and we got to the wreck around sunrise. Peter put us on the fish most of the day. We ran out of tags at about 43 or 44 fish, and Stuart sat in the chair for 11 and a half hours, had 1 bite of a sandwich, 2 swallows of a Coke, and caught 73 bluefin tuna. At one point during the day, when the bluefins were biting, one right after another, Peter hollered down and told, "Hold everything in the boat." He took off with the boat on a plane, leaving the other boats hooked up there at the wreck. Gary hollered up to him in the bridge and said, Where are you going, Peter? Peter says, "I'm going to try this other wreck to see if they're biting better." Gary looked at me with a blank stare and hollered back up at Peter and said, "Biting better than what?" Captain Peter in that season at Hatteras, in 16 days fishing, caught 340 5 bluefin tunas. Peter Wright has fished in more locations around the world for big game fish than anyone I know or have ever heard of in my lifetime. He has caught marlin and tuna in almost all the countries in the world that have tropical waters. But Peter's not just your normal fisherman. He is your educated fisherman. But Peter got an undergraduate degree at Georgia Tech in applied biology, and then later got a master's degree in finance. Once a stockbroker friend of ours was asked if Peter was smart. He looked the man right in the eye and said, "Peter Wright, smart?" Said, "Hell, he's got more degrees than a rectal thermometer." With that, I'm going to let Mark Garnsey tell a few stories about him.
You folks, you guys, you deserve an award yourselves. This is a marathon. We really appreciate you people coming. This has been a lot of fun. Years ago, I was fishing in Africa with one of the late trustees with the IGFA, Pierre Klosterman, who's a Frenchman friend of ours that's a legend in sport fishing. Apparently, he had fished with Peter years and years before in Australia, and I'm just going to say he wasn't crazy about Pete at the time. And we were having dinner one night, and he asked me if I knew Pete, and I said, Pete and I grew up together. We've been friends for years. He thought about it a minute, and being a diplomat that he was, he says, "Peter's a brash young man." And that describes him to a T. He is indeed, and always was, a brash young man. Pete and I fished a lot of places together through the years, delivered boats to Indonesia. We fished Africa, Cape Verdes, you name it. Pete and our personalities are about as polar as you could possibly get, but we share one common goal, and that's what we really did like to get a bite every now and then. We agreed on almost nothing, but through the years we found a common ground. But one thing I really learned fishing with Peter was that you did stay on your toes. You did pay attention, and he made you think all the time. He made you think about what you were doing and why you were doing it. And this led to some really good arguments, which I still enjoyed. But I want to tell you that it's really a pleasure for me to see Pete get this award, because he justly deserves it. He's a great friend and a great fisherman, and really a great addition to our vocation.
He's on his way. Captain Peter Wright, come up here. No. Picture first. Mark, over. CP, come here, quick. I gotta get CP in here. Hold on. He's too much history. He's moving pretty fast, the little guy.
Well, I can't really refute any of that, but I'm wearing this shirt tonight for a reason. This has got the learners on it. It's got the Merritts on it. It's got the Starrett brothers on it. It's got E.K. Harry on it. These are the giants upon whose shoulders I am fortunate enough to stand, them and many others. What Coble taught me a lot, I had so many mentors. As a kid, I was very fortunate to have some older men take an interest in me and teach me how to fish and how to do the things that I got good at. What the guys failed to tell you with all those tuna we were catching in North Carolina, we released all but about 4 of them. Of all the 1,000-pound marlin that I've killed, that's less than 10% of the ones we've released. And I'm a firm believer in conservation and in tagging and releasing, and we do that all the time. I'm going to cut it short. I could tell you about all these old men that were great and helped me out, but we've been here long enough, and I'm flattered and grateful to be given this award. Thank you very much.
You heard from 5 people that were so accomplished and so humble. It really makes the whole event worthwhile. I think all the recipients are still here. If they'd please come up at the tables, the people with them can stick around. Deborah Todd, the photographer, is going to try to get some photos of your whole group, if she can. And last but not least, I want to thank everyone again for coming to the event. Thank you for supporting the IGFA, and if you don't support the IGFA, you better sign up or meet me out in the hallway a little later, and I'll take your money and make sure you do join in some way. But right now, I want to tell you all, thank you again, drive careful, and thank you again. See you next year. Good night.